Hi everyone, it's Jerry. I have a crushing game to share with you from round 7 of the 2025 US Chess Championship. On the white end, Hans Niemann, playing against Fabiano Caruana. Alright, this is a very rare result. A player of Niemann's caliber falling with the white pieces in only 28 moves. Something clearly goes wrong fast. Opening, Italian game. D6. This is the Paris defense. That was news to me. All right, forget about the name. Let's note something after d6. The dark square bishop clearly influenced in the Paris defense. It stays inside of the pawn chain. Now, a healthy response to d6 is to immediately play in the center with d4. Niemann's approach is to build first with c3, next step d4. This is an approach as well. From here, f5, e4 coming under fire. In this game, it is supported with d3. Now, I want to touch on a couple different moves here. One that, first of all, appears aggressive, queen b3. This is poor. It's aggressive because you're targeting the knight. There's also a check in the air. A good response to this is to put the knight on its favorite square and be okay going uncastled. Just be careful not to get checkmated. King e7 would be the way. And now 2 questions are thrown immediately back to white. How are you handling the pressure on e4? How are you handling the queen being kicked from defending the bishop? A sample line from here might run with the capture, queen kick, and in the end, black is pretty much saying thank you for the bishop pair. And I'm fine being uncastled. Healthy center on top of it all. More than fine here for black. My point, queen b3 is not a good idea. Nor is d4, with the idea to meet this capture with knight g5 converging on these light squares. Reason being, there's d5 here, shutting down this diagonal with tempo. So Niemann's approach in this game is d3. Now, this might raise a question. Hang on. c3 was played with the intention to next play d4, but after just a little bit of pressure on white center, this is having an influence on the d pawn, and now it just goes one step. There are still valuable points to note behind c3. The main one that comes to mind, the knight is restricted, doesn't have any wonderful forward jumps. All right, the response here is queen f6. If knight f6, knight g5 starts to be pretty irritating, focusing on these light squares, it's queen f6 in this game. Pop quiz. How would you continue here? Feel free to pause the video. Okay, in the game we have castles. Now, if knight g5 is played looking at this f7 square, knight h6 is there to cover it. A top move here is queen b3. Now that e4 is reinforced, now that the queen is on f6 here, knight doesn't have that square anymore. This is serious. How does the computer want to play it from here? It says develop the knight, develop the bishop, develop the other knight. Rapid development here for white. And from here, it's looking at a6 with the idea to play b5 next, influencing the bishop. Evaluation after a6 reads about plus 0.4. Now, a move I was curious about in this position is questioning the bishop, looking to maybe get at g2. It says be prepared to give up that dark square bishop, and then remove black's f-pawn, knowing the bishop cannot recapture. b7 would collapse. After the queen recaptures, after black's f-pawn has been removed, now it wants to castle. Why am I drawing so much attention to this removal of black's f-pawn before castling? Let's see. Let's back up. What we have in this game, move 6 castles, the f-pawn still lives, and the f-pawn is now going to be a spearhead for an attack towards the white king. f4 is the response. Now, I can't emphasize enough, the difficulty ahead now for white. First of all, Niemann went into a deep think after this f4 move. This is already a sign that he's clearly uncomfortable. He spent 34 minutes before playing his next move. He goes with b4 here. Now, not too long ago, I covered a game where Leela Knight odds played without a king knight, played with the white pieces, against Grandmaster Alex Lenderman. In that game, a white pawn was established on f5, and Lenderman ended up castling kingside. That did not go well for Lenderman. And that was without a knight. My point, castling kingside for white and allowing a black f pawn on f4, castling for black, allowing a white pawn on f5, is very risky. The evaluation after f4 reads 0, but forget about the evaluation. What this one's really coming down to is which side is it easier to play. In this case, it is black. There is a pawn storm right around the corner. This is very difficult to handle, as you will see. In the game, after 34 minutes, we see b4, knight development, a4, pawn storm with g5, knight kicked to d8, play in the center, no problem. This is secure. Knight kicked back, h5, knight e6, b6, pop quiz. How do you respond to b6? Feel free to pause the video. Okay, top response here, move in the game, c6. Now, if you capture on b6, the knight gets to drop in here, and this pressure on c7 is very irritating. Has defense, but this defense is not reliable. The best move here is to play king d8 clearly. Not ideal. To have the king in the center, a line like this, wide open position, still a ton of traffic on board, king in the center. No way. So it's important, in short, to keep the knight off of b5. And if you're torn between which of the two pawns should have that role defending b5, here's how we know c6 is the way. If you go with a6, this lesser valued knight pawn can exchange itself for a bishop pawn, a much more valuable pawn, especially when it comes to middle game, open phases. Also, if you're recapturing this pawn, you'd have to demote a piece. That's not cool either. c6 is the way, keeping the knight out. If you want to trade knight pawn for rook pawn, fine. Rook is a convenient defender. From here, bishop a2, knight g5, knight d3. Now, after bishop a2, c4 is opened up for the knight. This is, I believe, the main point behind it, so a little bit odd that it's not played straight away. This is how the computer wants to run it. Drop the knight straight into c4. Knight d3 played here. If knight c4, here's how the computer wants to run it after this. There's a serious problem, first of all, for black. There's an idea to take on e5 and then have the knight pounce on d6. That will be a disaster for black. You would have to cover d6 like this, bishop's eyes opened. And from here it wants to take on a7 and then make use of the newly vacant b6 square, targeting the bishop, exchanging bishops, and then playing in the center. How it plays out in this game, the center is firmly under black's control, and he could easily maneuver and just press on the king side of the board where there is this pawn storm, just waiting to pounce. Now with this line here, it calls it about equal. It says you could play it with a capture or backing off with the queen. Capture, knight recapture, there's a fork threat saying king f7. Capture, pawn capture, it likes that for black. Reading -1 after queen f5. Anyhow, white does not find this path, does not immediately dive into c4. It's knight d3. Pressure on e5, knight g6. This knight offsets this one for the most part, both competing for these squares, and this knight, unlike this knight on d3, does not really interfere with any other black piece. The knight on d3 influences this queen along the d file. It's in the way. Follow up from here is knight c4. Pop quiz. What is your move here? Feel free to pause the video. Okay, Caruana plays bishop e6. Computer doesn't see this as best. Best is a6 or a5, both with the idea to prevent the capture on a7 and the opening up of the b6 square. If I had to choose between the two, I'm leaning more towards a5. Might as well remove an option from the d3 knight. All right, we don't see the a pawn advance. Bishop e6, and from here bishop a3 is played. Now, what's going to happen after bishop a3? We see bishop captures knight, and then this f pawn is planted on f3 and will be a giant thorn in white's side. Now, if white wants to interfere with f3 by black, by playing f3 himself, this gets destroyed. Black can take on f3, pounce on the weakened h3 square, and just drift in with all of your pieces pretty much. There's going to be an accident happening shortly on f3. This file opened up. An example line from here, if white is capturing on e5, the queen can just back off. This is very dangerous. Huge intersection square on g2. If the king tries to hide, not knight captures f3. There is a save with knight captures f4. Knight e4, however, is winning. Targeting the rook, you're crashing through on g2. Okay, my point, you're not really helping yourself out by playing f3 at this stage with these two pawns, these three pawns here. All right, in this game, we have bishop a3. What's considered top? Yet again, this idea to capture and play knight b6, but never ends up playing it. We have here bishop a3, the pressure on d6 addressed forcefully with the bishop for knight exchange, and now f3. The center is well supported. Ready to take here on g2, opening up these two gaps for the black knights. Knight h4 right around the corner. White's response is g3, and naturally, we're going to go right after the king. There is now h4. This is a completely busted position for white. Let's see the try from here. Queen c2. Caruana not interested in capturing this pawn, hasn't been interested in capturing the pawn. This pawn is a very good defender for the black king. No getting at it, as long as the e-pawn remains. From here we have a takes b6. This frees up the rook to go elsewhere. Let's see where elsewhere is in this case. After rook a to e1, we have rook d8, rook d7, a recapture, and rook h7. Look at that. Makes it look so simple. Is this an overcommitment? Too much over here on the king side? No, it's not. Things are under control. There's no getting at this black king. There's nothing to do here. White removes a knight, but there is still plenty of fuel here to cause the king a headache. Last attempt here is with queen b3. We see the capture on g3. If you're recapturing, we have mate. If you're recapturing like this, black's crashing through. Queen captures b in this game. Queen h4. Yo! Can we put any more pressure on h2 here? Okay. The last try here is with a check. And after move 28, king e7. White resigns. There's no good follow-up here. No checks by the light square bishop, naturally. Being on a dark, knight can't give a check on an opposite color as the king, all that would remain are a couple queen checks, but it goes nowhere. For instance, if we continued with queen c7 check, king f6, and queen d8 check, the checks run out after bishop e7, and black will soon be crashing through on h2 for checkmate. So what a crush this one was. This one, players will certainly reflect back, I imagine, at this moment right here, castling and allowing f4. This is too strong of a pawn, and I don't know that we would be seeing too many more castling moves in this very position. Anyhow, your thoughts with this one, feel free as usual to leave any feedback to this video in the comment section below. Hope you enjoyed it and maybe took a thing or two away. That's all for now. Take care. Bye.